Hello everyone, my name is Kevin Blessick, and today I have Ross Prevost, Master Carpenter, Master Builder, Esquimalt High School shop teacher. He's here to help us out today, doing a great thing, helping us our Pathways and Partnerships. It's great. And today, we are gonna build the winter holiday tree. Yes, winter holiday tree. We're gonna try to grab as many elementary schools as possible, grade 3 to 5, and grade 3 up, I should say. And this is a great project that hopefully after our how-to video here, that you'll be able to do this in your own class and have that confidence to do so. We're gonna go through a few things here today and show you a few tools, show you the how-to part in terms of the layout, the measurement, the cutting, the drilling, all the good things that you get to do, that we get to do every day.
All the fun.
All the fun things, right? What elementary school doesn't want to cut and drill? Let's do it. Now, one of the things that we do want to talk about is what actual materials we'll be using, the tools we'll be using, and of course, safety. Okay, so we'll talk about that as well. Some of the pieces we've got here today is we're gonna be using pieces of pine, right? And these came from our local lumber store here, just Home Depot actually. And these pieces here have actually been cut at 45s already. So you'll have a bottom piece, you'll have a middle piece, and you'll have a top piece to the holiday tree. As well as you'll have a base. So all these pieces have been cut to length already. We'll do some measurement, and the last piece we've got, thank you Mr. Prevost, is we've got this spline. So this is actually longer than it needs to be, and when we need to cut to length, and we'll be showing you that. And what kind of tools are we gonna be using, Ross?
Oh, all the most fun tools. What do you have?
What do I got?
Gosh.
What is that?
This is a speed square, commonly used for drawing straight lines. So you can be butting it right up onto your piece of wood, getting your trusty pencil, whoosh, marking straight lines. Very handy. And where do we want to put those straight lines? We don't know until we use our ruler to measure out and find the center of each piece. So we're going to be using our lovely metric ruler to help us out there. We've got the oh so trusty hammer. Some of you have probably seen one of these before. It's actually a claw hammer. It's got a claw on the back. The sanding block.
Everybody loves sanding blocks.
And no one likes splinters, so that's going to be our best friend. We also have a little drill. And this little drill you guys are going to be using to pilot drill some holes into your spline to help you out, so when you're putting your little holiday tree together, you've got some holes pre-drilled for where you're going to put the nails. I think that's sort of it.
And in this corner here, what do we got in this corner? What's in this corner, Bob?
A miter box. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'll even show you the special things we're doing to clamp these down. These are, of course, called clamps. They slide, they hold things on the table so it's not slipping around on us, giving us grief. And we like to clamp down our miter box. This is our miter box, and we'll be using this for cutting the spline to fit your tree, the custom package. We also have this oh so trusty jig that Kev Dog over here put together for us.
We made it up.
We'll show you how to use that later. For sure. I think that's all the tools we need, Kev.
I think so. And you know what? The most important tool? Safety glasses, right here.
Exactly.
Safety glasses. Why do we need safety glasses?
I like seeing things.
I do too. I like my hair. I check my hair every morning,
Yep.
I do my hair, and that's all is good. It's true. Very pretty.
You are pretty.
I thank you.
Oh man, it's all those spin glasses.
Oh, it's the spin stuff. I love it. I love it. Every good project starts with a set of plans, and so we've got a lovely set of plans here that kind of take you through the dimensions of each piece, the glue up, the nailing part of it, and where to put things. We also have a lovely production path as well that kind of walks step 1, step 2, step 3 on how to actually do this project and in which order to do it. So it gives you a good clear flow of how to do the project. Now, we've got all our pieces here, and what happens is a lot of these pieces go missing. So we want to make sure that we choose the good sides and which side we want to place on the front of our holiday tree, And we also want to put our initials on there. So I've chosen this good side. I'm going to place that down. Put my initial on that as well, so I won't lose that. This good side here, that's our middle piece. We've done the same thing with our bottom piece, and then our base as well. So every good side is facing down, and with our spline, that doesn't really matter at this point because it will be at the back of the tree, but I will still put my initial on that so I don't lose that as well, okay? Once we have that, then we're gonna take our measurement. So everything we have here is gonna be measured. So with our steel rule, our metric rule, I've measured this piece here to be 292. That's a little bit of an awkward measurement, but half of 292 is, oh, hold on, 147. Yes, I had that in my head. Wonderful thing. 147, mark that off. This is 220, and so we're gonna mark that off at 110. And at the bottom one here, we've got about 124, 125, let's say 63. As long as it's close. It doesn't have to be like perfect. There's a certain amount of tolerance here, folks. We're not building the Eiffel Tower here, but we're building a really good holiday tree. So once we've got that, we've got our square. Now, as Ross said, this thing's awesome because it takes a line, you can line up an edge on this inside edge. It's got a nice square, it's got 90 degrees, and it gives you something to rest up against. So when I have that, and I'll use my bottom piece first, I've got my mark, take my square, make sure it's placed nice and flat up against the edge of the material. I'm gonna draw a line, okay? That's one straight line. Same thing here, another straight line. And then on my top piece as well. Nice thing about the top piece is you can actually just use the top of that tree, the very point, and then come down that way too, and that'll always give you that center piece as well, okay? I'll do the same thing for my base as well, and I've got a measurement there already. That's there, and away we go. So I know that measurement's there, and my spline. Now that spline is about 20 millimeters, so if we take our mark, it's really hard to hold a square and do that at the same time. So instead of using a square, I'm just gonna use my steel rule. I always liked that thing when I was a kid, just join the dots, and that's exactly what we're gonna do here. Let's just take those two lines, those two marks, line up the steel rule, and draw. Oh, that didn't quite work well. Okay, we're not always perfect. I try to be, but not all the time. And oh, there we go. It still moves around a lot. But again, as we have that, we're gonna draw our nice square straight line. So we have our straight line and centered on that spline. Ready for glue up.
So Kevin has done such a great job setting me up. I've got all of my pieces. There's beautiful straight lines that are square, and I can even check that if I wanted to with the square and did a good job. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna prep for our glue up. But before we do that, it's a lot easier to sand all of our edges of our pieces first before we glue it up, because then there's gonna be tight corners. It's gonna be tricky to get right inside there if we glue it up before we sand. So I'm just gonna take my handy sanding block, and I've got my goggles on because we're being extra safe, and it's always important to be safe. And when I'm sanding, there's lines in our wood, and you wanna sand with the lines. So I'm just gonna round the edges a little bit like that. I'm gonna brush the edge, and I'm just doing it on an angle there, so sort of 45 degrees, just to knock those edges down. And I'm gonna go around and I'm gonna sand all of the edges. You don't have to sand too much, just making them smooth so you don't get any splinters, because you know what? This is a holiday tree, and you don't want anyone getting hurt over the holidays. If they're admiring your beautiful piece of work, it's all about safety here. So we're just gonna knock these all down real quick. Oh yeah. Again, Kevin, great job on the measurements. These look absolutely perfect. And even if they're off a little bit, we're gonna make it so pretty that my grandma, I think I'm gonna give this to my grandma when I'm done. So, I've knocked all the edges off of that, and I've knocked the edges off the spline too. Perfect. We're ready for glue up. So, we've got this trusty wax paper that your mom or dad or cousin or sister or uncle might be using for cooking at home. We're gonna do our own kind of cooking here, and it's called gluing up some magic. So, the reason we use wax paper is that your glue won't actually stick to the wax paper. So that's why we use wax paper, not only to make sure that our table's clean, but also to make sure that our lovely holiday tree won't be stuck to the table once we're done. So I'm gonna set up my tree in the way that I'm gonna glue it up. And for right now, I'm just gonna glue up the tree section. I'm not gonna worry about the base, and I'm not gonna worry about the spline in the back. So I'm gonna set those aside. When I'm gonna glue this up, I'm just gonna take the very base and turn it on edge. And I'm gonna put glue along this top surface here. Then I'm gonna take my middle one and put glue just along the top surface here. I don't wanna put glue along the bottom surface of the middle one or along the whole bottom surface of the top, because when I put those down, if I've glued all the way along the bottom, there's gonna be glue dripping down from the edges of my Christmas tree. And that might look like some cool snow maybe, but I want to keep my tree as clean as possible. So I've got my back piece standing up, my middle piece standing up, and my top laying down flat. We're going to use some glue, and we're just going to put a couple dabs of it on there. It's always fun to make sound effects when you do it too, so. Nice! Now what do? I've got all these drops of glue on my pieces of wood. I need to spread them out before I can stick them together. So I'm just gonna take my finger, I'm gonna slightly rub that glue in. You don't want too much, you don't want the glue dripping over the edges, because that's just gonna make more work for you in the future. So I've got my glue on there, nice. It's covered the whole surface, I've spread it all out. And before I push everything together, I'm just gonna grab a piece of paper towel, clean off my finger. Because the cleaner you are, the less work you have in the future. Now this is where Kevin's magical measuring comes into play. We have all these lines that are straight down the middle of our tree. I'm just gonna line up all of these lines so they're in sequence. So my first one's already there. I'm gonna push my second piece down, butt it in, and line up those lines. I'm gonna tilt my bottom piece down, push it up, squish them together so that it lines up those lines. And I'm gonna try and show you here, but I've squished my tree so that glue has started to come up between the two pieces. That means we've done a great job gluing it up. So I'm just gonna squish it all together, make sure those lines are stuck directly above each other in a big laser beam of fun. And then I'm gonna try and wipe some of these little daps of glue that's pushed up between the pieces. And Kevin, do you think you have any?
You know what? I've got some wet paper towel for you.
You read my mind. So we're using wet paper towel because this glue dissolves with water. So we can do a clean up with our glue job just to make sure that it's less work in the future. We're always thinking about making as little work as possible because I'm lazy. It's just how I am, it's my generation. I like to be lazy, work smarter, not harder. And that is the first step of our glue up. So we're just gonna let this sit for at least 20 minutes, maybe 30, have a nap, do some silent reading. That's right, Kevin's over there sleeping already, lazy sod. But yeah, my recommendation would be leave it overnight to cure, and then we can continue on.
We've got one glued up already. This gentleman's name was Peter, and that was actually Ross. He calls himself Peter on every day that ends with Y. So here we go. We got Peter, and we've got one glued up, and this has actually been glued up all night. And actually, reality is all you have to do is leave this for 20 minutes, and those pieces will be together. So why the wax paper? Because when we pull that wax paper back, boy, look at that. It doesn't stick to the wood. Okay? If we used regular paper, you'd be sanding for hours. So this is where that sanding time comes down, and it cuts down on a lot of sanding time to make this look really nice. This is all the best sides of the pieces that we like, and away we go. So that goes there. I'll leave that on the wax paper just for now. And then we're going to take our spline, the backboard to our holiday tree. Is this what this comes down to? We've got our little backboard here. We've got our base that's ready to go. We've got the center line on that. Then we're going to take this backboard and we're going to lay this out because we need to drill and cut it. So we're going to lay that to the top of the tree, but not coming over the top of the tree, just to the bottom edges where it meets both edges there.
What happens if you come over the tree?
Well, if it comes over the tree, then you're going to see it.
Oh.
I don't want to see that.
My grandma doesn't want to see that.
Your grandma does not want to
No.
see that, right?
Okay,
Especially on such a special day, you know? All right, so when that comes up there, we've got our base. Base goes on to the bottom. Gonna hold that together.
One hand holding that?
You know what, that's a great idea, you know? 2 hands always work better than that. Looks pretty good there. This is where the partnership comes in, you know? I'm gonna draw a line to the bottom of that base, not to the top, but just to the bottom. The other thing I'm gonna do while I'm here, maybe you can still hold that there for me, Ross, or Peter, or wherever you want to be called. All right, we're gonna put a mark right in the center of that base. That's where we're gonna drill a hole. We're gonna put it in the center. And this can just be done by eye. This doesn't have to be, you know, rocket science by any means. It just has to be done by eye, so we have that in the center. We've got this, and now it's time to drill. We've got our sacrificial piece of wood, which is also called a 2x4. We're gonna take our piece here. We're gonna take our handy dandy clamp, all right? Well, these clamps are awesome because you just hold that part there and it moves back and forth. And when you squeeze it together, it actually clamps. So it makes it a lot easier for students to use. And we're always going to clamp it with that part facing down. Why? Because it's all fun and games until someone loses an eye. We don't want to lose any eyes today.
No.
And then we're going to drill. So this drill here is awesome because it goes in reverse, it goes forward. Now the one thing about drills is you always want it going in the forward direction or the drill will not work. We've got a little 1/8 bit here, and that's the perfect size for our drills, for the nails that we're going to use. And we're gonna put that and we're gonna hold it nice and tight, kind of holding your legs kind of shoulder width apart and holding it nice and square, and we're gonna drill down until it reaches all the way through. Now this drill obviously isn't long enough to go all the way through the table, and that's why we use that sacrificial piece. Next one.
What would your mom say if you drilled through the table at home, Kevin?
If I drilled through the table at home,
yeah,
I would be in a lot of trouble. The other thing we need to do is we need to mark off the end of that using that lovely square again. Why do we mark that end off? Because that was the end piece that we need to cut to. There we go, Ross. Cut away.
All right, so I'm gonna jump on the miter saw here, and I'm making sure that I'm wearing my safety goggles. And the way that a miter saw works is that it's a saw that sort of runs in these little tracks here. It moves back and forth. It's also got a fence on the back and a base. So I'm gonna put this lovely piece of wood that Kevin set up for us and made sure that it's all nice and square, and I'm gonna cut on that line. But before I do that, I need to make sure that the back of the fence and the base of my saw is clean, so that when I put my piece of wood down there, I can push it against the fence and down onto the table. So I'm sort of pushing it back and down at the same time. Now I'm gonna lift up the miter saw, slide it into place, and I'm gonna do nice long strokes. I don't wanna do little tiny short ones. I'm gonna draw the saw all the way back and push it forward. And there we go. Now we've got our piece. It's cut on the line. We're gonna hand it back over to Kevin.
Perfect. Now the other thing we can do as well is we can provide these pieces cut to length and drilled already, depending on your comfort level. So, and it also requires that every school that we use this has a drill and of course a miter saw. And if we would obviously provide those if needed, but we do have these pieces and we can supply these splines cut, drilled, and cut to length already as well.
All right, so now we're moving on to nailing it all together, right, Kevin?
We have to nail it together. You betcha.
And you've already put in a ton of time and effort in making these wicked little jigs to help us out, right?
What is a jig, Ross? Is that like
dance.
Is that the Irish jig?
That's right.
No,
For sure.
That's not the jig, Ross. This is the jig.
Oh, this is the jig. Okay, so I understand then that in woodworking, a jig helps you hold everything in place to make your job easier whenever you're doing something. So right now we're going to use this nailing jig to help us nail. And I want to make sure that I clamp it down. And just like Kevin's done before, we're making sure that it's not sticking up in the air, because Kevin's pretty goofy and sometimes he trips and slips, and we don't want him getting hurt.
It's all fun and games until someone loses an eye,
That's right. And that's why we're wearing our goggles.
That's why we got these on.
That's right. So I'm going to clamp it down just like that. And what's our next step, Kevin?
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to assemble all these pieces.
Okay.
So having the base that
Yep.
goes into here, Oh, look, it just slides right in
Like
there.
a dream.
Yeah, we've got our bad side here with our names and our lines drawn.
Awesome.
Oh, where's that gonna go?
I think it's just gonna sit right
I
on
think
here.
it's gonna
Let's
sit
do
right
that.
there.
And we're gonna line up the lines on the base plate,
You
right?
betcha. There's that little base plate.
Awesome.
That line should be drawn up a little higher on
Yep.
the end of the piece, and then not
The spline.
the spline. The
Oh.
spline.
And you know what?
Yeah.
I often make the mistake of putting the small nail that's supposed to go into the base up top.
Oh,
And then I don't have
Yeah.
a pre-drilled
you
hole in my
don't,
base.
and
So,
that could cause some problems.
right, so I'm gonna make
That could
sure,
cause some problems.
learning from my mistakes, that I'm putting that drill, or that hole in the bottom.
And what would hold this together better but
Magical glue.
magical glue?
Let's do
All right,
it.
let's put a little bit of glue on there.
Let's do it on the back.
I'm gonna get some nails.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna line up the line that Kevin's drawn for us in our pre-game setup here with the line on the back of the jig so that I know that my spline is perfectly in line all the way across, and I'm just gonna push that straight down.
Why are you pushing down, Ross? What?
I like to push down because, you know, it just sort of sucks everything together. If I were to
Yes.
just let it sit there like that, the glue might not actually be adhering to the actual tree itself. And again, we're making this for my grandma, right?
Grandma will love this.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Oh, and what are these? What are
Oh,
these?
those are little finish nails.
These are little finishing nails.
Not Swedish nails, but
They're
finish nails.
finishing. Yeah,
That's
they're-
right.
That's right.
Okay.
So, hey, you can pop one of these in each one of those pre-drilled holes. But
Awesome.
fits perfect.
Yeah.
Look at that.
If you're new to holding the hammer, sometimes you can choke up on it a little bit by moving your hand up. It gives you a little bit more accuracy, and I think I'm gonna do that this time. I'm gonna hold it a little closer to the head of the hammer, and I'm gonna make sure that my spline isn't moving around on me, and I'm just gonna tap those nails in nice and lightly.
You don't have to kill it.
You don't have to kill it.
No.
You know what?
Every kid likes to kill it.
Sometimes when you kill it, it bends over,
That's right.
and I don't know, it's tricky that way. We don't want it to bend over.
I like the idea of those pre-drilled holes, though.
It makes it easy, doesn't it? And the combination of those holes and the nails and the glue, I think is really gonna hold this thing together pretty well.
I think it's together.
I think we're done.
Well, no, we're not done.
Oh, of course.
We're not done.
What else do we have to do, Kev?
Why? Because
Well, that's right.
everything that you
right.
need to finish needs to be sanded.
Yep.
And we talked about this earlier. We talked about lines, right?
Yeah.
We talked about lines and we got all the edges and so on.
Yeah.
But it'd sure be nice to sand off some of that extra glue that came out of there, that squeezed out at the top side of the wax side. But how do we sand? Do we sand this direction?
No,
Or do we sand? Do we go with the lines?
I always like to go with the lines.
I heard with lines.
Yeah.
And what's that called? With the
green.
The green of
The
the
green,
wood.
right? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
The green. Here we go.
Why do we
you
do
know,
that?
I don't. You know why? It's because we sand with the green.
Yeah.
Because that's where the sandpaper wants to go, and it doesn't rip up the fibers in the wood.
Yeah.
You know, everything always wants to be sanded with the green.
Nice.
Right?
I like
you
it.
know?
Let's do it.
So if you hold that nice and flat on the table,
Yep.
and you know, of course, it's got that spine on the back, but you can always just sand that, you know, nice and lightly, making sure that this just did get glued up. So you want to make sure that that doesn't move anywhere,
Yeah.
right? And that's in a good spot as
True.
well. Okay, we don't want that to move.
No.
We want it to be a good spot.
Yep.
We could have put, as you can see, this moves up a little bit here as well. We could have put a little bit of glue on the inside of that edge as well. And that's something that I think we would do next time. Do you
Let's
think
do
we'd
it.
do that next time?
I think so.
Yeah, I think I would do that.
Yeah.
Just to make sure.
I don't want it to break.
You don't want it to break. You want a bit of glue there.
Yeah.
You want a bit of glue on that backside. It's all nailed together. We sand with the green. I think we're good to go. Woo! We got a holiday tree.